What makes a habit? Seems like a simple question, right? But the implications are really profound. Understanding your habits could be the key to unlocking health, wealth, close relationships, and even overall happiness. Would you be surprised to learn that habits have more to do with how we think rather than what we do? The psychology of habits have been heavily researched, and there's new insights emerging that I think you're going to want to know about. So let's start off with what exactly habits are. According to the American Journal of Psychology, a habit is a more or less fixed way of thinking, willing, or feeling acquired through previous repetition of a mental experience. So they're essentially behaviors that have become automatic through repetition. The author Charles Duhigg, in his book, The Power of Habit, explains what's called the habit loop, which consists of three components: the cue, the routine, and the reward. The cue is what triggers the behavior. The routine is the behavior itself. And the reward is the benefit you gain from doing the behavior. So let's give a real life example that, I think most people can relate to. About 75% of adults drink coffee. And, as I was thinking this through, I realized there's probably more than one way to look at it. But certainly for me, the cue is a feeling of tiredness in the morning. The behavior is preparing and drinking the coffee. And the reward is that sweet satisfaction of alertness. Another example could be stress eating, which plagues a ton of people, especially in America. The cue would be that feeling of stress. It could be work stress, personal stress, relationships, whatever it is. The behavior is eating something maybe not so healthy, a donut, for example. And the reward is the dopamine rush to the brain, which for someone can make them feel like a temporary sense of well-being. Now, in that case, would it be considered a good habit or a bad habit? This is where things can get a little trickier because many habits are neutral, right? Actually, I'll say probably most habits are neutral. For example, like the hand you brush your teeth with, or how you choose to tie your shoes. Those both fit the definition of a habit, but don't really produce a substantial positive or negative impact on you, or certainly not on those around you. A good habit, simply put, is one that has a positive impact on your life. So in the previous example, which hand you brush your teeth with, that would be neutral. But the act of actually brushing your teeth regularly, that would be a good habit. Now, frequently good habits, they're going to lead to long-term benefits or contribute to overall happiness. A bad habit, on the other hand, this is a repetitive behavior that's harmful. They often negatively impact health, happiness, or productivity. So going back to the stress eating habit, if you develop a habit of eating a donut or some other sugary food every time you feel stressed, but you feel stressed infrequently, not very often, it might not be that bad. If you generally are a healthy eater, if you are healthy, if you're fit, then the impact of that one donut is small. But on the other hand, if you're frequently stressed, then reaching for the donuts might be considered a bad habit, especially if you generally have poor eating habits to begin with. In that case, we may categorize it differently. So now we know what a habit is and how to categorize them. Let's go into the why. Why do we have habits? And to understand why habits are so powerful, we have to look at the brain, specifically the basal ganglia. It's a group of nuclei in the brain that plays a really crucial role in the habit formation process. This area of the brain, it's involved in coordinating these routine behaviors and actions, essentially helping us to automate them. This automation can be for good or for bad. Remember, The brain isn't making that decision really. It's just creating a pathway for efficiency. So if you've ever heard the term neurons that fire together, wire together, that's what's happening. Imagine you're standing outside of a dense forest that you have to get through. You take an axe and you start clearing the trees to make a path. Once the path is made, it's really no effort to get through the forest, as long as you stay on the path. But if you want to create a new path, you have to start chopping new trees. So you have to put in a lot of effort again until that new pathway is formed. So same author, Duhigg, puts it, habits, scientists say, emerge because the brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort. This explains why habits can be so powerful and why they can often feel so difficult to change. Because again, you have to chop some new trees to create that new path. Now, good habits are not inherently more difficult or challenging than bad habits. I think people have this mistaken belief that good habits are hard and bad habits are easy. It's not the habit that's hard. It's getting from the bad habit to the good habit where all the pain, effort, and struggle come from. But once someone's out the other side, the good habit can feel just as effortless as the bad habits. And exercise is probably the most perfect example. Most marathon runners didn't just wake up one day and run a marathon. There was a point in their life where they had to make the decision to buy the running shoes, to lace them up, walk out the door, and actually start running. But through that initial pain, through that initial struggle, tolerance is built. And then a new habit is formed. So for them, running 5 miles feels incredibly easy, where it's going to be really challenging for someone who has never ran. Healthy eating is probably another good example, because for someone who's caught up in the habit of convenience foods, fast foods, comfort foods, sweets, those types of things, they're going to look at somebody who eats healthy and think it looks impossible. But for someone who's developed the habit of eating healthy, they don't even want those other foods. They don't crave them at all. So even if they do indulge in them from time to time, it's not enough for them to break their habit of eating healthier. Now, this comes up a lot with my clients when we're working with them on making better food choices. There's oftentimes an initial shock. Like, am I going to be able to give up? And then you can fill in the blank from there. Soda, fried foods, rice, bread, ice cream, whatever it is that's really challenging for them. The habit of eating it is so entrenched in their brain that in the beginning, they can't even imagine how it's possible to not eat those things. Not long after, though, it really doesn't take long. Once they've been eating healthy for a while, they tell us, I don't even want those things anymore. I look at them and I already know how it's going to make my body feel. So breaking bad habits usually requires a few different things. Number one would be awareness. You have to just know that the habit exists and that it's not healthy. Number two would be the desire to change it. And then number three would be taking deliberate action. So, for example, for a smoker to quit smoking, they have to recognize that it's bad for their health. They have to desire to make that change. And then they have to take the necessary steps to be able to change that behavior. And the reason why I say usually changing bad habits requires those three components and not always is because sometimes it's simply a matter of changing the environment that changes the habit. So if you have a college kid and they're living in the dorms and they're eating pizza 5 nights a week, but then they move home for the summer where they get home cooked meals every day, they didn't necessarily have any awareness or desire or honestly any real deliberate action, but being at home helped them eat healthier because they were in that environment where they're getting the home cooked meals every day. In general, though, mindfulness and self-awareness can be really important tools in the habit changing process. There's a study that was published in the Journal of Mindfulness. And what they found is that individuals who practice mindfulness, which is essentially deliberate awareness of the here and now, they were better able to resist unhealthy eating habits by increasing their awareness of the present moment, which helped them reduce those automatic behaviors. But what's next? If you have an awareness of a bad habit and a desire to change it, the deliberate action requires building new positive habits. And you can do this by setting clear, achievable goals. James Clear, in his book, Atomic Habits, which I love, it's a favorite read, emphasizes the importance of starting small. He writes, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects your habits have multiply as you repeat them. So remember, you're chopping trees in the forest. It's normal to feel challenging at first. It gets easier the more of those neurons fire together, reinforcing the new habit. And do you need to chop the trees perfectly to create the path? Absolutely not. Habit formation, I should say, and goal achievement is more about persistence over perfection. So shooting for perfection, I believe, is the fastest route to failure because it can be overwhelming. And that overwhelm gives people an excuse to give up as soon as things aren't perfect. An example is if you give yourself a goal to walk 5 days a week, and for someone shooting for perfection, they might miss a day unintentionally. Say, it's stormy weather outside. They suffer an injury, they get knee pain. If they're shooting for perfection, it's almost easier for them to say, well, I didn't walk yesterday, so I might as well just stop even trying to walk 5 days a week. Where if the goal is persistence, the same person can say, I didn't walk yesterday, but I'm going to get back at it and I'm going to get back on track today. So really, consistency is key. Repetition is what reinforces the new behavior, making it automatic over time. And things that are automatic don't feel hard. They don't feel like they're a lot of work. It's super simple once you reach that point. Now, again, though, environment also plays a significant role in habit formation. According to Dr. BJ Fogg, this is the author of Tiny Habits, designing your environment to support your goal can make new habits easier to adopt. This might mean keeping healthy snacks in the house or setting up a dedicated workout space. Social support has also been found to be crucial. Surrounding yourself with supportive friends or joining a group with similar goals can increase your chances of success. Accountability partners or support groups can provide motivation and encouragement. So consistency, if we're looking at the big picture, it's going to require some degree of self-accountability. And a small percentage of people have a strong sense of self-accountability naturally. Most people need some extra source or person to be accountable to. An accountability partner or support group, for example, until the new habit has been reinforced long enough that it feels easy. So if that's you, if you fall in that majority, it's okay to hire a personal trainer. It's okay to hire a health coach or a financial planner. Doing those things could be the exact catalyst you need to turn the corner in helping you achieve those bigger goals. Now, one effective strategy is called habit stacking. And this is where you pair a new habit with an existing one. For example, if you want to be consistent with taking vitamins every day, you can place those vitamins next to your toothbrush. So you already have the habit of brushing your teeth every day. When you go to brush your teeth, the existing habit, that's going to be your cue to take the supplement, the new habit you're trying to form. Now, I also believe in making micro commitments over macro commitments. And an example of a macro commitment would be all these, New Year's resolutions that people fail at year after year. Someone in January might say, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to eat better, and I'm going to do intermittent fasting. It's a lot. It's a lot to take on because they're trying to take on too much too fast. It gets overwhelming. And 30 days later, they've already given up. They've already gone back to the old habits that weren't serving them. On the other hand, an example of micro commitments would be someone wanting to get better hydrated. They want to start to drink water more regularly. Let's say they want to get up to 100 ounces a day. Instead, let's just, as an example, say they're drinking 20 ounces a day. They want to get up to 100. Making that big change overnight might feel really challenging. But instead, if they committed to drinking one extra glass of water each week until they hit their goal, it's going to feel much more manageable. They're much more likely to stick with it. But when doing this and you stack enough of these small things, people can look back and really be amazed at the types of transformations that they can make over time. Because of course, there will be challenges along the way. It's important to stay patient and persistent. Remember, habits take time to form. There was a study in the European Journal of Social Psychology that found that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. Now, remember, that's on average. In my experience, 90 days is really the crucial ideal amount of time. So if you're trying to change a habit and you're 45 days in and it still feels hard and you're frustrated and you feel like giving up, just know you're closer than what you think. It will get easier. Staying motivated can be tough, though. A good way to stay motivated is by celebrating smaller wins along the way. So if you wanted to lose 50 pounds, don't celebrate, only once you've lost 50 pounds. Celebrate every 5 pounds you lose. Also remind yourself of why you started. Why is it so important for you to reach that goal and establish the new habit? By having that deep understanding of why it's so important for you, a lot of times that's the motivating factor that people need to continue on even when they're feeling frustrated. So we've covered all the basics of habits, but so what? Let's actually do some practical exercises. This is something you can do at home. Start by identifying one habit you want to change and one new habit, ideally a healthy habit, you want to adopt. Start by writing down why changing that habit is important for you and be as detailed as possible. Do not skip this step. Being able to reflect on why it's important will be the best way to stay motivated throughout the process. Now you're going to write down the cues, the routines, and the rewards for both. For the new habit, think about how you can make it easier to perform. Is there another habit you already have that you can stack it with? Can you break it up into smaller micro habits that build up over time? What you're also going to want to do is track your progress over the next few weeks. Keep a journal and you're going to note any challenges and successes. I would love to see how you do. So please share your experiences with us in the comments. And if you want to do a deeper dive on habits, and I definitely recommend you do, there's a ton of great books out there, but a couple to get you started. One of them I referenced here. It's Atomic Habits, written by James Clear. Another good starting point would be Habit Stacking, 127 small changes to improve your health, wealth, and happiness. And that's written by S.J. Scott. Thanks again for joining us today. Stay healthy out there. Until next time.